Hey guys, Danny Johnson here. Today I'm going to be showing you how to turn off the diagnostics light on your car, which is basically the check engine light or service engine soon light. Different manufacturers have different names for it. But I'll show you a few things you can do to turn it off and talk a little bit about why it might be turning on. Okay, so the short answer to this video, the easiest way, if you just want to turn the light off and see if it comes back on again, what you want to do is come over and find your battery. Sometimes it's in the front of the car, sometimes it's on the front by the firewall over here, sometimes it's in the trunk depending on the car. But basically what you want to do is take off the negative battery terminal first, then go after the positive. Once it's completely disconnected, hold the horn down for 30 seconds and then let the car sit for 15 minutes. When you put everything back together, then the car will start back up and the check engine light should be cleared as the computer has forgotten about it. Now, there's a lot more to it than that, so keep watching this video if you want more detailed information on why it's coming on, if it's bad for it to be coming on, and some other ways to turn it off. So you're driving down the road and notice your service engine soon lights come on. Well, don't be too alarmed. It's not usually detrimental. If you see your oil light come on or the coolant temperature is skyrocketing, then definitely pull over as soon as you can. But with a service engine soon light, basically some part of the emissions of the car, or one of the sensors like the O2 sensors, the throttle position sensor, the air intake sensor, mass airflow sensor, one of these sensors has gone outside of its parameter and it's let the computer know that something's not right. So there's a few things that you can do and to turn the light off, but you have to remember that if that light was coming on for some reason, then it will reoccur. So the best thing to do is figure out why the lights come on in the first place. So before you turn your check engine light off, you want to find out why it's coming on. Obviously, if there's something wrong with the car and you turn the light off, it's just going to keep coming back on if there's really a problem. So something you can do is get a diagnostics tool. Now, what I have here are handheld tuners which also have the diagnostic feature in them. And as you see, it's made for basically any vehicle that's out on the market. And so just go into Google and type in, handheld tuner or diagnostics tool, and then whatever car you have, and you should be able to find something. Now these are a little more expensive because they're also designed for tuning the car, but they have the diagnostic feature on them. You can go into Walmart and O'Reilly or Checker or AutoZone, Napa, some of the other car places, and find a diagnostic tool that will do just the diagnostics part too. And so basically what you're doing is plugging it into the OBD2 port on the car. So this is what the plug looks like on the tuner or your handheld deal, and that is usually found somewhere here. On a lot of cars they've put it right when you come in the kick panel here where it's easy to get to. On this car it's over underneath the dash, but basically you'll find that that plug in here and plug it in, and then when you turn the car on, it'll come up. So basically, once you know what the code is, it'll give you some number like a P105 or some number that'll come up, and you can Google that number. Some of these ones even will give you a small description of what it is that's going on. So once you've replaced the part that's bad, one of the sensors, then the car can learn on its own sometimes, and you start it up and the check engine light comes off. Now if you need to just turn it off otherwise, because sometimes the sensors fault out on their own, and you can reset it and they're okay to drive around on for another while. But what you'll want to do is take off the negative battery terminal, then take off the positive battery terminal so that the battery's not connected in any way, and then just to drain the rest of the system, you're actually going to go in and hold the horn down for 30 seconds, and that will take the load off of any electricity that's still within the system. And so obviously make sure you do it in that sequence so that you're not honking your horn. So anyway, that's with the battery disconnected, you wait about 15 minutes and the check engine light will be gone because you've reset the system. Now, like I said, that doesn't necessarily mean that the check engine light won't come on again if something's wrong. And something, I guess I could show you here. These are some of the things that you might have that are setting this off. You have a mass airflow sensor that's measuring how much air is going into the intake. You have temperature sensors. You have throttle position sensors. Right here you have an idle air control sensor, which is basically, it's like a baby throttle body, and as the car's idling, it will open and close to, let the car idle a little bit more refined in that way. And one of the most common things that will happen are the oxygen sensors. Okay, and I have a bad oxygen sensor here, and I wanted to bring this one up because this is one of the most common sensors that go out, and the reason why is because you have exhaust that's cluttering up the sensor, where some of the other sensors are just measuring the difference of air, so they don't really get that dirty, but the oxygen sensor has exhaust passing over it all the time, and so it can be the culprit for a lot of reasons. And something I wanted to talk about is when a sensor gives you a false reading. So for example, I had this sensor itself go bad on my other Mustang over here, and what happened is I got a check engine code saying that the car was running rich. And so I thought, well, what would cause a car to go rich? It did not say that it was the sensor. It just said that the car was running rich on one bank. So I went through and I thought of a lot of things, and the car was ready for a tune-up anyway, so I changed some things on it. I put a new fuel pump in it, new fuel injectors, and changed a lot of things over. And luckily I had my brother who has the identical car, and so I was stealing parts off of his car and swapping them onto that car to make sure that that wasn't what was wrong, because these sensors can get to be very expensive. And so if that's another option you might have. If you have somebody with a similar car, you can swap parts around to see if it fixes it before you go out and spend a whole bunch of money on parts like these that are not returnable once they've been used. But anyway, in the end, what had happened is this sensor had gone bad, and instead of the computer saying that it was the sensor that was bad, the sensor was giving false information to the computer, and so the computer was saying it was other things. So that's something just to keep in mind. Sometimes you can be sent on a wild goose chase because you think what you're going after is the case, but in reality, it's the messenger. So that's just something to keep in mind. The car really was not running great at all. It was bucking, and I was getting real worried, and I had changed the fuel injectors and everything else that I could think would cause a strange rich condition, and in the end it was the O2 sensor itself. So just want to have you keep that in mind as well. So basically, that's how easy it is to turn off the check engine light, and you can take the car usually into one of the parts stores like AutoZone, and they will read the check engine light for you for free and give you a printout of what you need to fix it. But what I found recently is a lot of times they will not turn it off. They want to make sure they're not turning off a check engine light and then having you run in to get the car inspected, and then find that they're kind of at fault that way. So, and on the newer cars, it'll tell you if the check engine light's recently been turned off. So that's something to also keep in mind. But basically, just remember that the check engine light is basically coming on because one of the sensors inside the engine or throughout the exhaust are telling the computer that something's not right. And so even if you turn the light off, it might come back on. So the best thing to do is figure out why it's coming on. Have the code run at AutoZone or via one of these handheld tuners or programmers, and find out what it is that's wrong, and remember that it might not always be what the code says it is. The code, just keep that in mind. That's maybe a rare occurrence, but it is completely possible. Now, do you want to drive around with a check engine light on? And the answer to that is no. And the reason why is because the car has been set up to run on certain parameters. And even though the car might feel like it's driving just perfectly down the road, you may be running too rich or too lean. And meaning you have too much fuel going into the engine or not enough. And both of those can be problematic, as too lean can start running really hot and burning sensors up, or too rich can be basically flooding the engine cylinders with fuel and clogging up your catalytic converters and all kinds of things like that. So anyway, I hope this video was helpful, and just remember, if you want to turn your check engine light off, it's probably a good idea to first find out what's tripping the sensor, and then either go after changing those sensors out, whichever ones were bad, or possibly, realize that it might be something different. I have some other videos on changing O2 sensors and such, so if you're interested, take a look at those. Anyway, thanks for watching, guys.